There was a moment during the Cold War when the most important battlefield wasn't on land, at sea, or in the air. It was above all of them, invisible, silent, orbiting far beyond reach. Because in a world where nuclear war could begin without warning, the side that could see first would decide everything. Missiles could be launched in minutes. Bombers could cross continents. Submarines could disappear beneath the ocean. But if you couldn't see what your enemy was doing, you were already behind. This is the story of the satellite network that spied on the Soviet Union, the system that turned space into the most powerful intelligence platform of the Cold War, and changed how nations understood each other forever. In the early years of the Cold War, the United States faced a dangerous limitation. It could not see inside the Soviet Union. The borders were closed, access was restricted, and information was controlled tightly by the Soviet state. What existed beyond those borders had to be estimated, guessed, inferred. But in a nuclear standoff, guesses were not enough, because decisions were being made at the highest levels, about weapons, about strategy, about potential war. And those decisions required certainty. The United States needed to know how many missiles the Soviet Union had, where they were located, how fast they were being produced, and how ready they were for launch. Without that information, every plan carried risk. Too cautious, and the United States could fall behind. Too aggressive, and it could escalate unnecessarily. The balance depended on knowledge, but traditional intelligence methods had limits. Human agents could only go so far. Signals intelligence could only capture so much. And aerial reconnaissance, while effective, carried enormous risk, because flying over Soviet territory could trigger a crisis. And eventually it did. The need for a new approach became clear. One that didn't rely on access. One that didn't risk direct confrontation. One that could operate continuously without being stopped. The answer came from an unexpected direction. Space. Because once an object reached orbit, it could pass over any territory on Earth. Not as an aircraft, not as a violation of airspace, but as something beyond it, a satellite. The concept was revolutionary. A system that could observe from above, capture images of installations, bases, and missile sites, return that information safely, and repeat the process again and again, without detection in the traditional sense, without interception, without warning. But building such a system was not simple. It required rockets powerful enough to reach orbit, sensors capable of capturing detailed images from extreme distances, and a way to recover that information once the satellite completed its mission. Because in those early years, there was no real-time transmission. Everything had to be physically returned. That meant designing systems that could survive launch, operate in space, and then re-enter the atmosphere, all without failure. It was a challenge unlike anything before, but the potential reward was absolute clarity. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where the most critical breakthroughs happen far from the battlefield, consider subscribing, because what this system would soon reveal would change the balance of the Cold War itself. Because for the first time, the United States would no longer have to guess. It would be able to see. The first successful missions didn't look dramatic. There were no aircraft breaking through defenses, no ships approaching hostile shores, only a rocket launch and then silence. High above the atmosphere, a satellite entered orbit, moving at incredible speed, circling the Earth again and again, passing over the Soviet Union, without warning, without resistance, because there was nothing that could reach it, nothing that could stop it. For the first time, intelligence wasn't limited by borders. It wasn't constrained by distance. It was continuous, global, and persistent. Inside that satellite, the mission was simple: observe, capture, record. As it passed over key locations, cameras activated, photographing missile sites, airfields, industrial complexes, anything that could reveal the true scale of Soviet capability. Every image mattered, because each one replaced uncertainty with fact. But capturing those images was only part of the mission. They had to be returned, because in that era, data could not be transmitted directly. Instead, the satellite carried film, physical film, exposed in orbit, then sealed inside a small re-entry capsule. When the mission was complete, that capsule would be released, falling back toward Earth, protected by a heat shield as it passed through the atmosphere. And then a parachute would deploy, drifting downward, somewhere over the ocean or remote terrain. But even then, the mission wasn't finished, because that capsule had to be recovered. Aircraft were sent to intercept it mid-air, pilots maneuvering precisely to catch the descending package, because if it landed uncontrolled, there was a risk it could be lost, or worse, discovered. The entire process required coordination, timing, precision at every stage, from launch to orbit to recovery. And when it worked, the result was unprecedented. Clear images of Soviet territory, detailed views of installations that had never been seen before, proof of what existed and what didn't. The impact was immediate. The feared missile gap could now be evaluated accurately. In many cases, the Soviet arsenal was smaller than expected, less advanced than feared. That information changed strategic planning. It reduced pressure to escalate. It allowed decisions to be made with confidence, because now the United States was no longer reacting to uncertainty. It was responding to reality. At the same time, the system continued to evolve. Each mission improved the technology, better cameras, higher resolution, more reliable recovery, because the goal wasn't just a single success. It was continuity, a network that could observe consistently, track changes over time, identify patterns, because intelligence wasn't just about seeing once. It was about seeing repeatedly, understanding progression, detecting preparation, anticipating what might happen next. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where innovation reshaped the balance of power without a single shot being fired, consider subscribing, because what these satellites created wasn't just visibility, it was insight, because once you can see clearly, you can begin to understand. But even with that advantage, the system faced a reality that couldn't be ignored, because observing from space removed many risks, but it didn't eliminate them. And as the system expanded, the stakes became even higher, because now, intelligence wasn't just valuable, it was essential. As the satellite network expanded, it became something more than an experiment. It became essential, because now, entire strategies depended on what those satellites revealed. Missile deployments, construction of launch sites, movement of equipment, patterns that could indicate preparation for something larger. Each image was analyzed carefully, compared against previous data, looking for changes, because in the Cold War, change could signal intent, a new installation, an increase in activity, something that didn't match the expected pattern. And when something didn't match, it demanded attention. Inside intelligence centers, teams worked around the clock, examining photographs, measuring distances, identifying structures. Every detail mattered, because even a small discovery could shift understanding, and that understanding could influence decisions at the highest level. The system created a new kind of awareness, not just seeing what existed, but seeing what was changing, tracking the evolution of Soviet capabilities over time, reducing uncertainty, increasing confidence. But with that capability came a new kind of pressure, because once you can see, you are expected to act on what you find. And sometimes, what was found raised difficult questions. Was a new missile site being prepared? Was it operational? Was it part of a larger deployment? Or was it something else entirely? The images could show structures, equipment, activity, but interpretation still required judgment. And judgment, in that environment, carried risk, because acting too quickly on incomplete information could escalate tensions. But waiting too long could mean missing something critical. That balance between observation and action defined the system, because intelligence was no longer the limitation. Decision-making was. There were moments when satellite imagery revealed developments that demanded immediate attention. New missile deployments, changes in defensive systems, activity that suggested preparation. And in those moments, information moved quickly from analysts to command centers to national leadership, because once a potential threat was identified. Time became the most important factor. The same time that early warning systems tried to create now had to be used wisely. At the same time, the existence of these satellites was not entirely invisible. The Soviet Union understood what was happening. They knew that their territory was being observed, that their activities were no longer hidden, and that knowledge changed their behavior. Camouflage, concealment, efforts to limit what could be seen from above. Because even if they couldn't stop the satellites, they could try to control what those satellites revealed. A new layer of the Cold War emerged, not just building capabilities, but hiding them, masking activity, creating uncertainty in new ways. Because now, the contest wasn't just about strength, it was about visibility. What could be seen, what could be concealed, and how each side interpreted what it observed. And if you're interested in Cold War stories like this, where the struggle for information became as important as the weapons themselves, consider subscribing, because what the system revealed wasn't just the capabilities of the Soviet Union. It revealed the limits of certainty, because even with satellites in orbit, even with constant observation, the final decisions still had to be made by people, and those decisions would determine whether the balance held or broke. In the end, the satellites never launched a weapon. They never fired a shot. They never appeared on a battlefield. And yet, they may have been one of the most powerful systems of the entire Cold War, because their purpose was not to destroy. It was to reveal, to replace uncertainty with knowledge, to ensure that decisions were made with clarity, not fear. For the first time, the United States could see across borders consistently, track developments over time, understand not just what existed, but how it was changing. Missile sites could be monitored, deployments verified, capabilities measured with precision. And that changed everything, because when uncertainty is reduced, so is the risk of miscalculation. The satellite network became a foundation of stability, not by removing the threat, but by making it visible. Because a threat that can be seen can be understood, and a threat that can be understood can be managed. For the United States, this represented more than technological achievement. It represented strategic control, the ability to respond based on evidence, to avoid unnecessary escalation, to maintain balance in a system where mistakes could be catastrophic. At the same time, it reshaped the entire intelligence process. What had once taken months could now be observed in days. What had once required risk could now be achieved from orbit, and what had once been hidden was now exposed. That transformation extended beyond the Cold War. It became the foundation for modern surveillance, modern reconnaissance, modern understanding of global activity. Because once the capability existed, it continued to evolve. More advanced satellites, better resolution, faster analysis. But the principle remained the same. See first, understand first, decide with confidence. Because in a world where decisions could determine the fate of millions, clarity was power. And that clarity helped prevent escalation, helped maintain deterrence, helped ensure that even in moments of tension, the balance could hold. Because both sides understood something essential, that their actions were no longer hidden, that movements would be observed, that preparation would be detected, and that knowledge influenced behavior. It introduced caution, it forced calculation, it reduced the chance of surprise, and in doing so, it helped keep the Cold War from becoming something far worse. That was the true impact of the system. Not what it did, but what it prevented. Because the greatest victories of the Cold War were not visible. They were the ones where conflict never happened, where decisions were made with understanding, where escalation was avoided, and where the world continued. Because someone, somewhere, was watching. For more stories like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because some of the most powerful systems in history didn't fight wars. They made sure those wars never began.